right. I'm going to go ahead and introduce our panelists and give them a chance to say hello to you. We'll start with Erin Cooney, who is Director of Curriculum and Instruction at Pure Edge, where she teaches well-being strategies to learners and educators around the country. Welcome, Erin.
Thank you so much. I'm grateful to be here and look forward to connecting with you all.
Erin is joined by Alexis Harris, who is with us from the Contemplative Sciences Center at the University of Virginia, where she is director for the Compassionate Schools Project and also a research assistant professor for the School of Education and Human Development. Her work employs qualitative and quantitative methods to develop a better understanding of how the interactions between developing youth and their school and community contexts influence social and emotional development and well-being. Welcome, Alexis.
Hi, glad to be here.
And also joining from the University of Virginia is Tish Jennings, who is Professor of Education with the School of Education and Human Development. And she is an internationally recognized leader in the fields of social and emotional learning and mindfulness in education. Her research places a specific emphasis on teacher stress and how that impacts the social and emotional context of the classroom. Welcome.
It's great to be here with you.
And we also have Michelle Kelsey Mitchell with us, and she is Director of Partnerships and a National Trainer for Pure Edge. She also teaches stress management at George Washington University and is pursuing her Doctor of Education in Educational Leadership and Administration with a dissertation concentration in educator well-being, policy, and practices. So thanks to all of our panelists for being here. Michelle is going to kick us off, so I will hand things over to her.
Thank you so much, and thanks so much for having us. Really excited to be here today. I want you to just double check your surroundings. If you haven't already done so, make sure you have something to write with, and go ahead and grab that. And then using something to write with, I would love for you to respond to the following prompts with the first thing that comes to mind. So either the first sentence or identify just sort of the first three words that come to mind in response to these prompts. So here we go. I feel happy when. First thing that comes to mind. I feel happy when. The next one. I feel proud of myself when. I feel proud of myself when. The next one. I feel healthy and strong when. And the last prompt to consider, I feel safe and cared for when. Okay, so I asked that you answer these prompts kind of quickly. And ideally, you could answer at least one of them. And if you need to, you can go back and answer some of the others. But I want you to consider when you look at the responses, pick one, and you look at your responses with your current understanding of compassion. Do you see the connection between giving compassion or receiving compassion in your current understanding? If that connects to any of your happy, proud, healthy, safe, or cared for moments? And that's a really, really tough question. And so in order to think more about that, because the answer may not be crystal clear in this moment, I would hope that you will be on the line for the rest of this workshop as we go into a deeper inquiry around what compassion is and what compassion looks like for us. So we start with sort of this self-inquiry. And then we're going to use our time today to expand on this self-inquiry. We're going to take a look at what exactly, again, compassion is. What does it look like in our classroom, in our school settings, in our communities as we work with children, and how that relates to us as adults. So we really want to apply the strategies that we learned today sort of right away. And I believe that with the supports that we have in place, you'll be able to do so. So thanks for engaging in that inquiry. And I'm going to pass it off to Tish, who's going to start again with what exactly compassion is. And we're going to delve into this.
Hi, it's great to be here with you all today. So compassion, what is compassion? It involves several different processes. First, it requires that we recognize when someone is hurting or in need. And, it's not always that easy sometimes to recognize or to notice when someone's in need. So this involves really paying attention to the people around us and tuning into them. The second part of the process is empathizing with that need. And that can involve an emotional state of feeling with them. It can also involve understanding how they might feel because you've had some similar experience in the past. And then the final part of this process is feeling this motivation to help the other person. So these are important steps, but the next slide, please. This is a skill that can be taught and strengthened with practice. Obviously, people can be compassionate just naturally, but we can also build our compassion capacity as individuals and as communities. Next slide. And an important part of the compassion and empathy world of field of thinking about these states is that if we are empathizing with somebody who is experiencing distress, it's not uncommon that we start feeling that uncomfortable feeling as well. So we could end up, especially as educators, because we are interacting with a lot of children who may be experiencing distress, we may end up feeling empathy-based stress, which is this experience of adverse psychological and physical reactions to trauma exposure at work, resulting in empathetic engagement following trauma exposure. So this has also been called vicarious trauma, secondary trauma, traumatic stress, or compassion fatigue. Next slide, please. But one thing wonderful about compassion is that it can help us with this issue, with this empathetic distress. My friend and colleague, Tanya Singer, who's a professor at the Max Planck Institute in Germany, has done a lot of research and has been able to tell, and using brain imagery, that there is a big difference between the kinds of compassion that we experience in terms of feeling good about helping somebody else, as opposed to empathetic distress. And it actually shows up in the brain differently. So when we think about what value compassion has for us as educators, when we're starting to feel a little bit of this empathetic distress, if we can intentionally shift our orientation towards that feeling of wanting to help, that feeling of wanting to care, it can have really positive outcomes as opposed to the negative outcomes that can be associated with empathetic distress. Next slide. Another reason to focus on compassion is that it can help our students. In this large trial that we've been conducting on the Flourish curriculum that involved 45 elementary schools, we have found that students learning compassion skills or building compassion skills has led to greater social self-efficacy. Students reported that they felt more able to manage social situations more effectively, greater empathy, greater attentional control, the ability to focus attention, greater pro-social behavior, and fewer conduct problems, especially among students who are at high risk. Next slide, thank you. Another important part of compassion is how it impacts our learning community. And these are the three keys to compassionate teaching that I have outlined in other programming. The first one is cultivating supportive relationships. When we do this, when we build relationships among ourselves as teachers, as educators, as school leaders, we do that among the adults in our classroom, that will help us build those same supportive relationships and model those same supportive relationships among our students, between our students, and across adult student relationships. The next key is building safe spaces, creating safe spaces, making sure that our schools and our classrooms feel safe, looking to make sure that there aren't any places in our learning environments that may have the potential of not feeling safe. Finally, the last key is building on strengths of students by supporting their adaptation. Rather than taking a deficit view of our students and trying to sort of quote unquote fix them, really shift our orientation towards recognizing the strengths they have and building on those. Next slide. So as a part of this, the last part of this session, part of this session, I'm going to lead you through a practice that will help you build your own compassion for yourself, because we do also know that as educators, we need to build our own compassion towards ourselves, and this practice can help you. So it's a good idea if you have your paper and pencil or pen out to get that ready, because I'm going to ask you to do an exercise. First, imagine a friend or a colleague who might be experiencing a painful challenge at work. Then imagine what they might be feeling. Write down 3 things that you might say to them to comfort them. Try to think of words that express care, empathy, and compassion. Now bring to mind a challenge that you are experiencing or recently experienced in your work. Choose something that's challenging but not too difficult or painful to revisit right now in this setting. Now try repeating those same kind words that you said to your friend. You can do this either out loud if you're all alone, or you can do it silently to yourself. We're often more compassionate to others than we are to ourselves. So this might not feel natural or easy at first. Try saying them to yourself in a way that you would to offer them to a dear friend or a student. Now take a moment to notice how you're feeling right now. When you're ready, when you feel like you've done this for long enough, bring your attention to your breath. I noticed that there's a question about the term compassion fatigue. Thank you, Lori. That's a really good question. Nowadays, we consider that a misnomer because obviously if compassion is not fatiguing, if it actually is enlivening and creates a sense of positive affect, then it's not really, we would rather call it empathetic distress. Thanks, Lori. Okay, next slide.
Thank you so much, Tish. And thanks for that beautiful practice. From here, we're going to move into looking at cultivating compassion in the students, in the learners. And I wanted to start by just, getting your mental wheels turning, and let's think about what SEL skills might build the capacity for compassion. So just have a think to yourself, and then if you have a suggestion, go ahead and share it in the Q&A. Okay, great. I'm seeing quite a few come through here. Non-judgment, and if you hear some noise in the background, I have a sick little one at home, and she's watching shows and talking out loud. So non-judgment, emotional awareness, listening skills, social awareness and empathy, emotion management, empathy, self-regulation, communication, non-judgment, eye contact and listening. Okay, you all are coming up with some really, profound and right on answers in terms of skill building. And, I think what this reveals to us is that compassion, and like offering compassion and sharing compassion and being able to show compassion to another, is a highly skilled ability. When can we move on to the next slide, please? Thank you. So when the Flourish curriculum was getting written, there was a focus on what are the fundamental skills that are necessary in order to teach students compassion. And these 4 were sort of top of mind as the curriculum was written. And these skills, the skills of being able to identify one's own emotions and in yourself, and then also identify emotions in others, the ability to manage your own emotions, the ability to both feel and express appreciation for others, and finally, the ability to, stand in someone else's shoes and be able to understand that their point of view might be different from yours, and to be able to think about what their point of view might be. These are foundational skills that the kids need in order to be able to develop their ability to show compassion. So how do we get this going? We can go ahead and move the slide forward. Thank you. So in general, in schools, I like to think about it, it sounds odd, but we want to set up structures and have structures in place that allow the kids to practice these skills that help support compassion. And some of the opportunities you want to have for them are practicing ways to take care of themselves, right? Because just like, as Tisha's section, she started off and we talked about the importance of the educator taking care of their own well-being. We also need the students to be able to take care of themselves and be well-resourced. And then they are practicing that skill so they can also support their peers. So some of the ways we model that and we support that are through practicing and modeling kind self-talk, allowing opportunities in the school day for learners to rest. So resting when we feel tired, moving our bodies and showing our bodies compassion, treating our bodies with kindness, right? And recognizing that our bodies have needs and finding ways in the school day to meet those needs. And finally, creating a climate and a culture in your classroom where students feel free to ask for help, right? And are able to receive compassion from others. Okay, and we can move on. Great. And so the Flourish curriculum has specific strategies that really help support this skill building. And so the 3 types of strategies that you're going to see in the curriculum are mindful moments. And in our time together today, we're going to practice and or talk about the anchors and check-in mindful moment, as well as the gratitude and appreciation practice. So mindful moments are just time exercises where we take the time to do some breathing, to check in with ourselves, and or to practice and cultivate states of mind that support compassion. The curriculum also includes mindful movement. So again, we live in our bodies, right? And we use the body both as a way to show care for ourselves, and also a way to, by moving mindfully, we're allowing ourselves to release stress through the body. And finally, when the students are practicing mindful attention, so noticing feelings and sensations in the body, this lays the groundwork for the learners to be able to notice the feelings and sensations that are associated with different emotions that they feel, because of course we also feel emotions in the body. And finally, throughout the curriculum, there are a whole range and host of activities that support compassion and the compassionate skill set. They're really, there's a beautiful variety of activities, and they're developmentally appropriate. So we have a K1 band, a 2 to 3 grade level band, and a 4 to 5 grade level band. And the one we'll mention today is developing perspective taking ability. And one way that that's done, especially at the upper grade levels, is through doing interviews. So we can move on to the next slide. And we have come to our first practice. So I'm going to invite you to join me in anchors and check in. So come into a comfortable sitting position. And before we get started, just take a look around you. So just kind of using your eyes, turning your head, just taking in the space that's around you. And then again, in that comfortable sitting position, you may bring your hands, one hand to the chest and one hand to the belly. And these are our anchors. Of course, if that's not comfortable to you for any reason, you can do the exercise resting the hands in your lap or anywhere that feels good. Now, as we get started, you can choose whether to do the exercise with eyes open or eyes closed. If you choose to keep the eyes open, I recommend just bringing your gaze, kind of tucking the chin and bringing your gaze away from the screen. So from this position, in this moment, I invite you to bring your attention to your breathing. We're going to start breathing in and out the nose. And just noticing the breath as it moves in the body. Noticing what happens as you breathe in. And what do you notice as you breathe out? Take one more breath here. And now, with a sense of curiosity and a sense of kindness, bring your attention to your body. And just notice what comes up. Maybe you feel your heart beating. Maybe you feel your stomach growling. Just noticing anything. And now let's shift our attention and check in with our minds. And just noticing anything that's on your mind. Is your mind busy thinking? Is it calm? Just notice. And I invite you to bring your attention back to your breath. Taking one more breath in and out. You can release your hands from your chest. And if you have eyes closed and you're ready, you can open them and come back into the space together. So that's our anchors. And again, we're just building the skills of noticing what we're feeling, noticing how the body feels, paying attention to the breath, right? And all of these skills can help support the development of compassion, both in ourselves and in the learners. Okay, next slide, please. These are just some examples of activities. There are probably hundreds more, but these are some examples of activities from the curriculum that support these foundational skill developments. But I want to make sure we have the time, so I'm going to keep moving to the next slide, and we're going to try some mindful movement. So again, I invite you to join me when we do these practices and strategies. We really make the connection better than just, thinking about them. So I invite you to stand up, and you're just going to make sure you have some room in front of you to fold forward. So we'll start the practice in mountain pose. You want your feet about as wide as your hips. You can turn the palms out, compress down through the legs so you feel the feet press into the floor and the legs get active. And now we're going to move with our breath. So as you inhale, the arms come up, the gaze comes up. And as you exhale, fold down. Head relaxes. Next inhale, the head lifts up, the gaze is forward for monkey. And exhale to fold again, sunset. Press down through the feet, inhale all the way up, arms up, sunrise. And as you exhale, hands down for mountain. And as you make your way back to sitting, just taking a moment to check in and notice how it feels to move your body, right? And to bring your body into your workday. And this again is a strategy that is practiced repeatedly in the curriculum. Okay. If you'd like to share any responses, go ahead and share them in the Q&A. And again, like when we're cultivating a compassionate classroom and compassionate school setting, we also want to offer opportunities for the kids to give and receive kindness and appreciation. So modeling is always good practice, right? Kids are going to pick up on our behaviors. We're going to model the behaviors we want them to imitate. And then, sharing opportunities for them to practice and express appreciation for themselves and others. Go ahead to the next slide. So one of the strategies, we're not going to do the practice today, but just knowing that it exists. We have a gratitude and appreciation practice where, you can call to mind a person, a thing, an event, anything that you feel grateful for, and really teaching the learners how to cultivate these positive states. Next slide. And again, the curriculum has opportunities for kids to practice perspective taking. This is a really nice example. This is from the 4 to 5 curriculum, and they practice doing interviews. So they interview each other in a partner, and then they see like where they have shared experience and where their experiences might differ. Another approach that's incorporated into the curriculum is through storytelling, where we encourage the learners to identify the perspectives of a character in a story, right, and understand what that character might be thinking or feeling. But in summary, these are all, these foundational skill sets. We start small, and over time, we're building and expanding upon the kids' capacity to experience and share compassion for their loved ones, their peers, their teachers, whoever they're interacting with. We can go ahead and do the next slide. So this is our final slide on this section. And just a reminder that modeling is always a skill. So anything you want the learners to be able to do, let's model it for them. So if we're really keen on having a supportive and caring classroom environment, let's make sure that our words are supportive and caring toward the kids that we're taking care of. And with that, I will turn it over to Alexis.
Thank you so much, Erin. So all of these strategies that Tish and Erin have been sharing, strengthening our capacity for compassion in ourselves as educators, modeling compassion for our students, and prioritizing students' social and emotional learning are, like Erin said, all essential pieces of cultivating those abilities of compassion and also cultivating just a more compassionate school environment. Up until now, we focused on individual and interpersonal skills and behaviors, but we also know that bringing compassion into the broader school culture needs to be an intentional process. So I'm going to talk a little bit about how we can cultivate a culture of compassion. So research has shown across many different contexts that our attention is on alert for negative behaviors and potential threats all around us. Our minds hold on to the negative interactions that we have during the day, hurt feelings, breaches of trust, especially in relationships. And this is a protective bias that we have as humans, but it doesn't always serve us well when we're trying to build more intentional, positive relationships, understanding, and a compassionate culture within our schools. So one way that we can counter this negativity bias is by intentionally noticing positive behaviors and emotions, such as compassion. And I think it's important to note that this doesn't mean we just need to think happy thoughts or put on fake smiles or to force a positive spin when we're having difficult situations. But what we can do is to really notice and savor those positive interactions that we have when they arise. And we can build opportunities for shared positive experiences to be a central part of our school culture. So 2 strategies that I'm going to share to be able to do this. One is to bring attention to compassionate behavior. Even when challenging situations are happening, we can often find compassion alongside that. And then the other strategy I'm going to share is around co-constructing authentic opportunities to practice compassion. So one example of a strategy to bring attention to compassionate behavior is to create a compassion board. And a compassion board is a pretty simple strategy. And there are some examples that are shown here on the slide These can be used as a place for documenting and sharing examples of compassionate behavior that take place within the school community. So in these examples, students have shared in 3 different ways. In one, they've shared acts of kindness and compassion that they've witnessed in others. And in one, they've shared acts of kindness and compassion that they themselves have participated in. And in the example with the tree, students even had a space to share ways that they had extended compassion to themselves. And they understood that as part of the roots of being able to share that kindness and compassion with others. And I love the simplicity of the compassion board, but it also has a lot of power behind it. So one way that this compassion board can be powerful is just to provide examples. So by seeing examples, we see other people's perspectives and can expand our own ideas about compassionate behavior and ways that it might show up within our community. Another way is that it communicates value. By creating this space and communicating that these behaviors are valued, we can encourage ownership of compassion as a part of the school culture. And then a third way is that the compassion board creates a shared positive experience for the school community. And because when we witness acts of kindness and compassion, we feel elevated and inspired to similar actions. And research has shown that when we witness behaviors that are compassionate or altruistic, we feel something called moral elevation. And this inspires us to then connect with others and to make similar contributions. So as a way for us to experience this, I've created a compassion board for us in this webinar. So I encourage you to open the link to the digital whiteboard and to add your responses. And then you might be able to come back later and reflect on what others have shared. And so that link, I think, is in the chat, but it's tinyurl.com/casel, CASEL, compassion board. And I'm asking for you to contribute ways that you've seen compassion modeled by a teacher that you admire. And then as you share those examples, you can reflect on what impact it had on you to observe the example that you're sharing yourself. And then perhaps when you're able to look back over what others have shared on the board, reflect on what impact it has on you to see what others have shared. And I see some examples are already being added to the board. So this is something that you can access over the next few minutes of the webinar, and you can come back to it later as well. So we'll go ahead and move on to the next slide. So we talked about the compassion board as a strategy to bring attention to intentionally notice compassionate behavior. And then the other strategy that I wanted to share is one to create authentic opportunities to be able to practice compassion. And this strategy is to facilitate a community compassion project. The community compassion projects that are included as kind of a culminating piece of the Flourish curriculum have been a really great opportunity for the students and faculty in our schools to co-construct an authentic experience of compassion and contribution to community. And these can also be an excellent opportunity for project-based learning. So with the community compassion projects, they're a little bit different from a traditional service project that students might engage in, because we're not just jumping straight into action, and it's not something that's been set up or pre-designed for them. Hopefully, students and teachers can work together to identify a need that's present in their community. And this could be something that's present within the classroom community or within the broader school community, or it can go outside of the school walls to be something that's present in the neighborhood or the city or the greater world. And the key piece of this project is that instead of jumping into problem solving and action steps, they first take the time to really explore what that need is and to reflect on who's impacted by that need and what the perspective of those impacted might be. And also to take some time to reflect on why students feel motivated to help, to show compassion. And then students work together to design a project that is within their reach and that can address this need in some way. And the pictures that are shown here just give a few examples of projects that have shown up in some of our schools. So, oh, can you go back? Yeah, thank you. So I want to take a second. At this point, you have already taken in a lot of ideas and strategies about compassion and how you can bring that into your school in maybe new ways or to strengthen things that are already happening. And hopefully these are strategies that can support everyone to feel like their best self in the ways that Michelle suggested at the beginning of our session. So I'd like to just take a moment to reflect on how this applies in your own work. And there are 3 prompts on the slide. One of them asks, what is one way that you can practice compassion for yourself or for others in your work? The second is, what is one way that you can plant and nurture seeds of compassion for your students? And the third one is, what's one strategy to encourage compassion as a part of your school culture? So I'll wait just a minute for you to take a second to write your answers, and you can add those in the Q&A if you'd like to, or you can just write them down for yourself. And then I will go ahead and pass it back to Michelle to wrap us up.
Thanks, Alexis. So as you all were just responding to a variety of questions, you may have noticed throughout our session today, we've moved from starting with you as the singular individual and starting to think about yourself and cultivating self-awareness in relationship to compassion, to thinking about implementation with students, as well as touching on the importance of our own care. So as we round out our time today, I'm wondering if you could just reflect on the time that you've spent. It was a content-filled 45 minutes, lots of strategies, lots of information. If you could walk away or summarize or reflect in a word or a phrase, what would it be? What would your takeaways be? And I'd love for you to share in the Q&A what your takeaways are as you come up with them. I love the first 3 words that have come through, and they are quite simple. And it's very simply put in, I needed that. Thank you for that. Good. So we have other words, hope. Yeah, starting with compassion for self. Possibilities, growth, community, love that combination. Yes, and then the actual strategies, right? The compassion boards, empowering our children. Yes, necessary. This work is so necessary. So you can keep that information coming. And also, what I love about this work is that we can get the information, digest the information, and then still keep thinking about it. and we can still keep applying and practicing, working with our students. Yes, resilience, exactly, as resilience comes through. So I would lastly ask that you all have so kindly put your information in the Q&A. Can you double check just the notes that you took and make sure that you just jot down any notes that you have for yourself? And as we do that, just reflecting too on a few more in here, remembering to keep things simple and authentic while helping to bring awareness to cultivating compassion, not only for ourselves, but with our students. Yeah. Okay, great. So let's move on to the next slide. And with this last slide, I want to make sure you guys know where to get the resources and what resources we have for you. There is a wealth of information in the Flourish curriculum, and we'll probably get into a little bit more with that in the Q&A. I'm sure it will come up. But from the practice guides to the teacher resources to the actual beautifully laid out scripted curriculum. We have everything that you need for K through 5 in this Flourish curriculum in order to fully implement the sessions. Next slide. You can access it on the website peeridgeinc.org. We'll put that link again live. You'll have it in the follow-up email too. And you should be able to see the digital version of the curriculum. It will come in a PDF form. You can download it. You can print it if you would like to, but it is on the website in that electronic or digital form. This is also a place to where you can contact us in regards to professional development, which is so key. We had many questions come in beforehand around adult SEL, so just want to make sure that you guys do know that there is the offer for professional development around that, as well as the open education resource curriculum, which is Flourish, which can be accessed on the website peeridgeinc.org. Next slide. Great. So now we're ready for Q&A. If you haven't already done so, please drop any questions that you might have in the Q&A box. And we will answer some of these questions live, and then some of them we'll continue to answer through text, so keep an eye out for those. I believe Tish and Erin and Alexis are going to pop back on camera now, and we'll go through some of these questions. Cheyenne asks a question about the schools that I think would be great for Alexis. Out of the 45 elementary schools surveyed, are any of them deaf and or blind schools implementing the curriculum? Or special populations in general?
So the schools that we worked with as a part of the trial were not serving special populations. So no, they were not schools specifically serving deaf and or blind students. We have had a lot of success in collaborating with individual teachers who are working with students in special populations, and we're constantly trying to get ideas and feedback about how we can share what they've learned with other teachers.
Great, thanks, Alexis. And I'm not sure if either you or Tish want to talk just a little bit more about the research in regards to where they might be able to get snippets of the research potentially.
Yeah, I can address that, and Alexis can add to it. We do actually have a paper that's being reviewed right now. It was submitted to a peer-reviewed journal, and it's under review. So hopefully the results from that study will be forthcoming. But Alexis, do you want to say a little bit more about the results?
I think that's good. Yeah, they're forthcoming, and the summary that Tish gave, I think was a good kind of capsule of the results. We do have some exciting impacts with student outcomes, and then we also have some work that's looking into impacts on classrooms and teacher-student interactions that will be also coming soon.
Great, thanks. There's a question about the connection to national health education standards. I'm not sure if Erin or Alexis, if either one of you want to touch on those.
So I can say that the curriculum has been aligned with the National Health Education Standards, and if that is something that you're interested in, please contact us. We have some documents that we can share to show alignment with various sets of standards for the different grade levels of the curriculum.
Thanks, Alexis. And I know we're Alexis heavy right now, and you get this question all the time, at least that the few times that I've been able to be with you. And so I already know the answer, but I'm just going to ask it because it's in there. Is there a secondary curriculum available or in the making?
So there's not currently a secondary curriculum available. We would really like to develop a secondary curriculum, but we haven't had the opportunity to do that yet. What we do know is that our 4th and 5th grade curriculum, some middle school teachers have taken that to implement that with their middle school students. But we hope to develop a secondary curriculum in the near future.
Okay, great. And then the last questions that we have right now are around translation and languages. Erin, do you want to take that question?
Sure, happy to. So the Spanish version of Flourish is in the works and it's near completion. So just keep your eyes on the Pure Edge website. We will be getting the Spanish translation up shortly. We don't have plans as of yet for other languages, but right now Spanish is on the way.
Great. Thank you. And then, Kate, I do see your question. We're going to answer that question offline. I'll let Alexis and Tish handle that question offline and answer that one through a typed answer. And always, if you do have other questions or further questions, please do feel free to email us. On this next slide, I believe the information for emailing directly is here. So compassionschools.org, you can get in touch. It's csp@virginia.edu, and then also pureedgeinc.org, where you can get in touch too with Jill, Gill, at pureedgeinc.org. We do have a little bit of time for more questions as they are coming in. So I think the next slide, if we can go to that, has the QR code potentially. Next slide. No?
Oops, the QR codes are actually on this slide.
Oh, you know what? It's blocked. Thank you.
Oh,
All right, so there
yeah,
we go. I just
there.
moved. Yeah, I just moved my window, so that clarified everything. Sorry about that, you guys.
No worries. I didn't want you to think I was ignoring you.
No, it's good. So we're going to pause on this slide. So you have all of the contact information. You can also get the curriculum from this slide too. And then I do have another question here. Could you please furnish details, about partners or affiliates? Yes, so we will answer that question. I do believe that we'll type answers or even following up with that question through email, which would be great. Again, this is an open education resource, so you can go online right now and have immediate access to these practices and strategies and skills that we went over today. And then you can also continue to get in touch with us. And by being an open education resource, there's no cost to the curriculum. So when you go online and when you access that link, it is free. It's absolutely free. So you can download all of the strategies that we went over today, and much, much more, much more. Andrea, yes. It's great to see you too. Well, know that you're there. It's good.
Well, if some more questions pop in, we'll certainly go back to them, but I'll just take a moment to thank Michelle and Aaron and Tish and Alexis for being here with us today and for introducing us to this Flourish curriculum. As Michelle said, it's completely free. And if you go to that URL that's in the chat and there on your screen, you'll be able to immediately access all of the lessons, the activities, great videos. It's incredible. So I encourage you to go out and explore it and share it with your colleagues. And Pure Edge also has some other curriculum available in addition to Flourish, which you can also find and explore. And we encourage you to do that. So again, thanks everybody for joining us today, for all your great questions and your participation. Thank you again to Pure Edge and for all of our panelists today for sharing their experiences and also modeling these wonderful practices. It's always so good to give those a try ourselves in the moment.